Thanks for visiting our channel again. Hall and Oates were one of the most beloved musical duos of all time, and the music industry has been blessed with many legendary artists. The duet achieved heights that other musicians could only imagine in the 1970s, when their classic anthems, such as Sarah Smile and The Rich Girl, had the world on their feet. A tragic tale, however, would be unfolding behind the scenes. Their once harmonious relationship soon descended into a devastating betrayal that severed their band and their friendship, leaving the music world in despair. The reputation of the Hall Oates name took a nosedive. The duo's driving force, Daryl Hall, would soon accuse John Oates of being the one who broke up their band. There are many who think the couple had a fairy tale start. Their shared appreciation for pop, soul, and rock music brought them together in 1967 at Philadelphia's Temple University, and the two quickly became friends. They meet at a university-sponsored event similar to Battle of the Bands, which is a perfect setting for the beginning of one of the most legendary musical collaborations in history. Oates' guitar skills and financial acumen were the ideal complements to Hall and his soft vocals, who served as the creative leader, but these characteristics would end up being the cause of their split. Oates and Hall weren't merely collaborators. They were inseparable, working in tandem to produce music that the entire globe adored. However, the two had a hard time settling on a sound that was uniquely theirs for a while. Not until 1975, with the publication of their self-titled record, did they begin to receive any sort of notice. Their popularity surged in the 70s and 80s, and they were a formidable musical force. One after another, they produced chart-topping singles that showcased their distinctive sound. It was an enduring classic because of the flawless fusion of soul, rock, and pop. But something was cooking under all this renown, and eventually fractures began to appear. The price that Daryl Hall had to pay for his celebrity was substantial, an insurmountable burden that intensified with each stroke. They had reached the pinnacle of success, but Hall saw it as a golden prison. The Hall and Oates have different creative visions. Oates seemed satisfied with keeping things as they were, whereas Hall sought novelty and change. Hall became more irritated as the hits continued. He felt stifled by the Hall Oates name, which was quickly growing in importance beyond his control. Oates was satisfied sticking to the tried-and-true pop formula the pair had perfected. However, the creative Hall was not pleased. He felt stifled in the apparently ideal pair because he wanted to break new ground and experiment with other techniques. One could even argue that this is when Hall first began to harbor animosity toward Oates. Eventually, Hall started looking into other projects, which could be a sign of the increasing strain in his solo work. He breathed new life into the Hall Oates library by delving into topics and sounds that were completely out of left field. His deteriorating relationship with Oates was further exacerbated by his newfound independence. Hall needed his solo efforts as an outlet and a means of reclaiming his creative identity. While Oates was concerned with preserving the Hall Oates reputation, he yearned for creative freedom. Oates' objectives had changed. According to Hall, no longer was he a visionary business partner. Rather, he was just another cog in the wheel. Their divide was widened by this knowledge. With a feeling of betrayal, Hall regularly reflects on this time. Once a collaboration built on trust and common purpose, Oates now seems more interested in holding on to the past than in moving forward with the partnership. While Oates, who was more concerned with the team's financial success, played a supporting role, creative genius Hall spearheaded the group's progress. Oates had other ideas, but the real thing happened when Hall suggested taking a sabbatical to reflect, mature, and reconnect stronger. Hall pinpoints the precise moment their partnership fell apart in a recent interview. He continued by claiming that he had been led astray by his naivete about their team dynamic, and that John had been secretly organizing trips and initiatives without his knowing about it. He describes it as an uncomplicated act of betrayal. According to Paul, there was the breaking point when he realized Oates wasn't as committed to their collaboration as he was. Trust was at the heart of this, not music alone. Despite their artistic disagreements, he thought of them as teammates and equals. Yet, it appears that Oates prioritized his own goals over their friendship and their shared legacy. Hall felt like a knife was slashed through their past with every decision Oates made behind his back. Mutual trust had been transformed into a profound wound, and there was no turning back now. Hall and Oates suffered irreversible harm as a result of this treachery, which changed everything. They continued to perform as a duo, but their partnership had faded. Their relationship had devolved into a resentful business partnership very fast. Hall has been very forthright in interviews about his animosity, characterizing their present relationship as only that of partners. In the end, Oates had attempted to make a monumental decision unilaterally by selling Primary Wave Music a stake in their joint venture. Hall sued his business partner because of this treachery, which jeopardized everything they had worked so hard to establish. The sale was successfully halted until the dispute was resolved through arbitration after he obtained a temporary restraining order. Oates recently said in an interview that he was amazed the partnership endured for so long, implying that he had considered leaving it long ago. Oates presents Hall's case by saying that he must be honest and do what's best for his family's future, and that Hall has insisted on being seen as an individual instead of a partner. Like her, he opts to see the bright side of their relationship. Additionally, he mentioned that after 50 years, people tend to drift away and find ways to work through creative obstacles. However, he did acknowledge that financial matters were different. Prior to this treachery in 2020, Hall had mentioned that the duo was working on a record, but that, as fate would have it, the music would never see the light of day. Although Oates still holds the music they made in high regard, he has decided to pursue a solo career and has no intention of performing with Hall again, as he stated in an interview with People. Hall paints a vivid picture of the entire incident using forceful language. The conduct of Oates and the subsequent decline of their connection, he claims, profoundly unsettled him. He goes so far as to accuse the perpetrators of acting in bad faith, saying that their actions caused him unneeded suffering, financial hardship, and other problems. Claiming that Hall was ready to leave on tour, he goes so far as to say that Oates orchestrated the whole affair to happen at the worst possible moment. As Hall said in an interview from 2021, he is opposed to and does not believe in firms purchasing publishing rights. Therefore, for him, it's more about the concept. What had once been Hall's greatest source of joy, his partnership, now served as a constant reminder of his losses. Ambition, misunderstandings, and the demands of fame can break even the greatest partnerships, and Hall remembers their story as a warning. He explains how what was once a unifying force became a flashpoint for competing goals and objectives as a result of their shared experiences. Despite its unifying power, the music had become a dividing factor between them. How could he not, given the duo's legendary status and their ability to create songs that transcended their personal struggles? Hall also recognizes the significance of their shared past, despite the treachery and the growing distance between them. Their music continues to bring happiness to their legions of admirers, who will never forget the good times their band once shared with the globe. Their music is still a mainstay on playlists all around the globe, and Hall and Oates are still performing today, but in distinct projects. Fans all over the globe still listen to their music and enjoy the nostalgic vibes it brings. The iconic influence they produced is undeniable, but at its core, Hall Oates' narrative is about more than music. It's also about loyalty, trust, and the terrible consequences of treachery. Now, what are your thoughts on the matter? Was John Oates' betrayal of Daryl Hall well-founded, or were they only making decisions that were vital to their legacy? Leave a comment with your ideas and subscribe for more music videos with stories.